Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to our Her Voice series. Can everyone hear me? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is the second year that we have ventured out to do these panel discussions. Her voice is simply being able to hear the stories of women who have served in the military. And this particular series is actually being hosted by Northeast Florida Women Veterans and the Women Army Corps here in Jacksonville. And we know that we have a couple of ladies on from the Army, Women Army Corps. So we also have, I want to introduce her because I know she's going to be introducing everybody else. Vanessa Thomas, just raise your hand so they can see who you are, is our State of Florida Women Veterans Coordinator, and she has joined us again this year to help with the moderation. Those of you, I'm looking at names to see if there are any names that I'm not familiar with, but Northeast Florida Women Veterans have been around going into its 10th year. And we're not a membership organization. We're simply an organization that exists to help women veterans become their best self. And that's really all we are about. And everything that we do is helping our women, help them also overcome some of the barriers in their lives, or just help them with professional development. So whether you are a professional or just someone that need help, we're here for you to make sure that you're going to be successful. So with that said, I'm going to hand this over to Vanessa Thomas to get us started. You're muted.
Am I muted? I'm muted now.
You're good.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Thomas. Like Dee said, I am the State Women Veterans Coordinator. I want to give a shout out to all of my shipmates. Go Navy. And welcome everybody who is listening in on this. This is a really good information. Dee, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this again. Today, we're just going to interview women and talk about reasonings for them joining the military, their experience, and their takeaway from their time serving their country and beyond. On the panel tonight is Laura Hart Wickett, a U.S. Army AD and NG Lieutenant Colonel retired. We have a Jackie Rivera, U.S. Navy Petty Officer, second class. We have Rosalina Archuleta Pintor, U.S. Navy Petty Officer, second class. Amy Collins, U.S. Navy AD and Reserve Petty Officer, second class. Ty Dixon, U.S. Army. Excuse me if I do not get your letters right. Sergeant first class, retired. Is that correct? And Jennifer Anthony, U.S. Army.
Air Force.
Air Force.
Yeah.
There we go. I don't know what CMSG
Chief Master Sergeant.
Chief Master Sergeant. Okay. So today, Dee, I will take over the first part, just provide the brief history and just start asking some questions. Is that a fair thing to do?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get. So this is just out to everyone, anyone that wants on the panel that would like to answer this question. What are some of the reasons you joined the military?
Hello, this is Rosalinda Archuleta, YN2, Officer Second Class. One of the reasons I joined the military is because I wanted to go to college, get some education, and I wanted to be independent, but more importantly, I wanted to follow my father's footsteps. He was Army, So I did not go Army. I went Navy. I didn't want to be exactly like my father, but it's just been a blessing. I was born overseas in Germany, and joining the military, I never felt more American in my whole life. And it was just such an honor for me to raise my hand. And living overseas, everyone's like, oh, where are you from, your nationality? And I'm always like, oh, I'm an American. But I never lived in America. And so when I joined, it was just really amazing for me and a great opportunity that I am an American, and I'm very proud and honored that I was able to serve my country.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Amy Collins, and I joined because, I don't know, it's kind of corny sounding, but I felt like I was led to do it. It was something from childhood. I always wanted to go into the military. Don't know why the Navy jumped out at me from a very young age, because I knew nothing about it. Everyone that I knew that served was Army or Air Force. But as I got older, there was no opportunity where I was at. My parents, blended family, large family, not enough money to send anyone to school. I was in a small rural country area, and the opportunity for school was hard. And so I wanted to travel. I wanted to get an education. I wanted more opportunities. So I enlisted.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I think a lot of people feel that way. They just needed to be part of something, and wanted to be contribute to, the overall state of the United States. Anyone else?
Yes.
Well, I joined. Oh, sorry.
No,
I joined.
Go ahead.
Okay. I had joined because I grew up in Baltimore in the ghetto, and I wanted to see the world and contribute to my country in some way. And they never talked about college to me at school. And I wanted to make a difference. And I think I did that for my country.
Very good. Ty? Miss Dixon?
Yes, I joined. Basically, I was born in a thriving city of Bartow, Florida. Right. Right now, the population is right around 20,000. So you can imagine what it was a couple of decades ago. It wasn't much opportunity here in the city. And I wanted to really help my family, want to bring more income into the family. My mother wasn't feeling well, and I had a couple of siblings, 3 or 4 siblings. So I just wanted to help out. That was one of the reasons. The other reason was I wanted to travel. I want to experience things. I want to further my education. So driven by the desire to help or serve and to be empowered, I joined. I joined the United States Army, right? I contemplated Army or Air Force, and someone said the Army promotes faster. So I was like, go Army. And that's my story.
That's good. Jennifer or Laura, do you guys have anything to add?
I will. Good evening. First, I will ask you for your grace. I'm a mama, like some of y'all, so I'm sitting in my car because my baby girl is inside taking her first fitness class, so I'm trying to balance both. But I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to hang out with my sisters in service. You may notice my country accent, and so like some of the other panelists, I grew up in small town Mississippi. My dad was in the Army. My grandfather served in the Air Force. But that I never aspired as a young woman to join military service. And I finished high school. I went on to college. And after 2 years of trying to go to school and pay my way through college, I woke up one day and I felt fearful that I was going to get stuck in small town America. And there was something inside of me curious about what else was in this big world. And in a pretty rash decision, I drove right to the recruiting station. It was just an Air Force recruiter. And so I can tell you that's why I joined the Air Force, because that's the only recruiter that was there. And you all, 22 days later, I left on my very first plane ride to basic training. It was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And so it was on a whim, joined a great team, and what I thought was going to be 4 years turned into 20 years and 9 days.
Awesome. Awesome. Laura, you have anything? Did Laura make it?
I don't think she's on.
Okay. But you know what? Jen, me and you are so similar, did the same thing. You know, I had a professor that talked about being in the Navy. So I can connect with every single one of you. My one other question is, what deciding factor, other than Jen, because you said there was only one recruiter there, did you decide to join the branch that you did? Anyone? Was there anyone?
Also, Linda, yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
So my dad was Army, and so initially I went to the Army recruiter, and that's the direction I was going because that's all I knew. And I left the office, the Army recruiter's office one day, and a guy said, "Hey, you," and I looked, and it was a Navy recruiter. He goes, "Hey, you look good in white." Had white jeans, and I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Come talk to me. I need to talk to you. You know, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to join the Army." He goes, "Oh, you don't want to go to the field and eat bugs, do you?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't." You know, and anyway, that's how I joined the Navy, because the recruiter said I look good in white.
Wow.
And my dad could have followed me around. By all means, so that's it.
Anyone else?
This is Amy again. Initially, I enlisted for the Army because the Navy recruiter office closed my junior year of high school. I had already started getting information, and for whatever reason, budget cuts and all of that, they shut down the Navy recruiting office. And when it was time for me to graduate, the Army was the most appealing. They offered me the closest to what I was looking to achieve for in the Navy, and did delayed entry with the Army. And about 3 months before I was supposed to go to boot camp, they changed my orders. One thing that I learned from my aunts and uncles that were military is, if you haven't gone to boot camp yet, you can still back out. So when they changed my orders and my supposedly guaranteed school was yanked, I backed out. About 6 months after I graduated, the Navy recruiting office opened, and my name was still on file. So I got a phone call from the Navy recruiter and asked me if I was still interested, and it was a definite yes. So I was really happy. Took a little bit of work to get my paperwork transferred from the Army. As a matter of fact, I had to retake my ASVAB, go in and do everything at MEPS all over again, because the Army really was mad that I did that. But I'm really glad that I did, because I feel like I was blessed in my time in the Navy, and connected to the right people, the right group of people, to really have an amazing experience. So Yeah, I almost went Army.
Anyone else? These are great stories, ladies. Wow. Awesome, awesome. However we did it, or whatever the reason why we did it, and we did it with honor. So I appreciate everybody who's made the commitment to this. Dee, do you want me to continue with the journey, or do you want to take over?
You can continue. I'm gonna answer this number 2 because
Okay.
I don't know if I said anything last year, but you know, I was in school, in college over at FAMU, and my mom was just having a time paying for my classes, and you know, I got tired of eating bologna and spam sandwiches in the dorm. It was just rough. So I decided to join the military, and I had a lot of problems because my friends and my family, my church, they were like, women, young ladies don't go in the military. And they had a name for women that went in the military, and some of you are probably familiar with that. But back then, that was in '78, it was not popular for a young lady to go in the military. And so my mom, you know, they were like, you're gonna leave, not be in church, and you're not gonna do this. And I says, look, I can be a Christian and still be in the military. And that was confirmed one day when I was coming from Tallahassee to Jacksonville on the Greyhound, coming home, and there was a girl that walked into the bus terminal on one of the stops, and she was in an Army uniform, dressed blues, I guess they call them, and she had a Bible under her arm. And that was my confirmation that it was possible. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, and I went in, and I, you know, stayed for 20 years and was true to what I said I would do, and continue to be that way. So, you know, I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity of having served 20 years in the Air Force.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go. We just need, sometimes the saying is, if you see somebody like you, you know that you have the ability to do it.
Mhm.
And that's a definite confirmation. So let's talk about your journeys and the experiences that you had while you were in service. So what were some of the challenges that you faced in your field? And tell me, and when you answer the question, can you tell me what part of your specialty you were doing when you were in, what was your job description when you were in service? Anyone? Let's start with Jen.
So I will share with you all. I had 5 different specialties while I served. So I'd master something and move on to the next. But for whatever reason, I always landed in specialties where women were even a smaller minority than we were in the service. So I started out in communications, what we would know today as cybersecurity. And so when we are such a small population of military service to begin with, and then now I find myself in a specialty where there are not a lot of people that look like me, that was really hard for me. And I think a lot of my sisters will agree. I don't think at the time I realized it was happening. Hindsight is a beautiful thing. But what I think I began to do was mute the pieces of me that were feminine, right? When I look back on my career and I think about the mentors that I had, I think about all the great people that I had in my life that believed doors for me. You all, not one of those people was a woman.
Mhm.
And looking back on that, that's a really staggering thing to think about, especially, I mean, I retired from service in 2018, so it's pretty recent. I went on to serve as a first sergeant in specialties with a very small number of women. So aircraft maintenance, security forces. At this time, I'm an E7 and an E8. And so the old guys that have been around a while, you know, give me a run for my money. But what I begin to see is that the small number of young women in those units would cling to me. And so it made it worse, kind of the heartache of fighting the system sometimes. And then when I was promoted to E9, I can't think of very many times I went back to cyberspace operations, and often I was the only woman in the room. And so by the time I made it to that point, so people who knew me would say, E9, Jen, well, your mouth finally matches your rank, right? Because I was pretty spicy. The entire time I served. But what I felt like is that my last 3-4 years of service as an E9, I really tried to embrace the challenges that I'd had growing up as a woman in service, and to become a voice and an advocate for those that came behind me. I think, you know, such is life, right? We can take adversity and let it eat at us, and we can lose, or we can choose to turn that struggle into strength. And so that's what I tried to do.
Thank you, Jen. Amy, how about you?
A lot like Jennifer, I was a very small minority of a minority group in the Navy. Electronic warfare is a small community. I decided to become a technician while I was in school, and I was the only female in my school. I don't think there was any other female to be in electronics warfare at all the entire time I was in A school and C school. I was the 38th female to go through the rating. So they didn't have female size rating patches or anything like that. Minor inconvenience, but it was just an indicator of the newness of women going into different fields at the time. And I was getting ready for reporting to my first ship, and my orders got changed while I was on leave because my ship was not in Mayport at the time. It was up in Virginia getting retrofitted for females. So I was going to be the first implementation of females on my ship, and it was a destroyer. So it's a small ship. And they were getting one berthing space ready for us. The max it could hold was 65 females on a ship of over 300 men. So my senior chief that I was going to be reporting to pulled some strings, got my orders changed for me to do temporary duty at a command out of Mayport called Fitzyland. And they did troubleshooting on the ships. When the ships couldn't figure out what was wrong with their equipment, Fitzyland would go in, and they're the experts. And it was really awesome because I got some great on-the-job training, opportunities to see different kinds of ships before I actually reported on a ship. And when the O'Bannon came back, I reported on board her, and my very first deployment was to the Middle East. So, and several months later, there were a lot of firsts for me. First, I was the only female in my workspace until my last 6 months on the ship. I did 5 years on my ship. So that was a long time being the only girl. I had two females come on shortly towards the end there. I had a short period of time to do some mentorship, but it was an incredible experience, but very eye-opening. There are a lot of things that I never would have seen or experienced if I hadn't have gone into the Navy. I'm really thankful for the time that I had in there, but I had some other plans for my life, and I started having children and pursuing being a mom.
Yeah.
But I recognize that the opportunities and the worldview that I got to experience and see things from other countries, how they think and view of us and our, it was amazing. It really got me to appreciate what we have here for our freedoms and opportunities. And really, especially after being to the Middle East and all of that, really appreciate what we as women are able and allowed to do in our country. So I'm like I said, it's something I'll never forget. And I'm looking forward to seeing what new pioneers, what new paths are blazed by the generations coming up behind us in the military.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect. Yeah, that's so true. How about Miss Dixon, Ty?
Well, we go to part B. How do you get out of Bartow, Florida, right? So,
What were some of the challenges you faced
yeah,
in
out
your
of
field?
Bartow.
Yeah.
So, my journey began when I was at the military enlistment processing station. When I joined, was actually back in 1976. It was called the AFES. Straight out of high school, trying to make a good decision, and took the physical the whole nine. And the guidance counselor offered me a position, some positions like administration, supply, whatever. And I said, no, don't worry about it. I'll go home and I'll come back. Oh, well, what would you like to do? I don't know, but I know that's not what I want to do. So it turns out, after spending some time in recruiting command, I was like there towards the end of the recruiting cycle, and they needed a person with my caliber, right? They needed what they call a 3A female, because by the grace of God, I scored high on the test, right? But I didn't know this as a young lady. So this colonel calls me in. Everybody go, ooh, you in trouble now. And I'm like, no, anyway, we'll speed the story up. He gives me the catalog, the occupational hand catalog. And he goes, young lady, if you join the Army today, I give you any job you want. Oh, yeah? Okay. Open up the book and I see this job, journalist. Now, this is a 17-year-old out of Bartow, Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'll do that job. Taking pictures, writing stories. Oh, that sounds great to me. He calls Department of the Army. They give me the job.
Awesome.
In the back of my mind, I'm like, what's a journalist, right? What do we do? Fly up to, and this is where the challenging part comes. Go through basic training. My platoon was actually the last platoon to go through under the Women's Army Corps, they told us. Go to Indianapolis, Indiana. Guess who's in the journalism class? Dedicated, college degreed people who beg for that job. And it's this young lady, 17 years old, now 18, who just say, I'll take it. So I was not on an even playing field at all. Very, very challenging. D, I learned the power of prayer. I learned the power
There
of
you
prayer.
go.
And long story short, I passed the course. I served in public affairs journalism for about 6 years, went back for photojournalism. So that was an awesome opportunity, and it just shows how the military, the armed forces will give you a dream of your life, even if you don't think you're capable of doing it.
What a fantastic story. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Jackie, I'm sorry I have to put you after her, but can you tell me how yours went? Your experience and your challenges in the field?
Well, I don't know if I could top that, but when I went to, like she said, to the AFEs and all that, and you know, I got sworn in and all that stuff, and they told me I had a guaranteed A school, but when I went to boot camp, they said I didn't. So, you know, the trickery stuff that was going on to get you in, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they finally gave me a school. I got yeoman, and after being in yeoman for 4 years, they told me I need to cross rate to something else because the yeoman rate was overpopulated.
Always
So I
is.
took the test for the first time for AZ, made it, and they shipped me off to Puerto Rico. So I mean, it was hard as an AZ, especially a female, because at the time they didn't allow us on ships. So it was hard to make rank if you didn't serve on board a ship as an AZ. So the men were being promoted and not the women. And that's why when I retired as an E5, because you know, they say timing is everything, and timing is everything. Because yeah, I mean, I even did a chief's billet and an officer billet by myself. And the only thing they gave me, not only I appreciate it, they gave me a Navy Achievement Medal. But if that was a guy in that position, he would have got meritoriously advanced to E6 and got the Navy Achievement Medal.
Right.
But I you know, and it was hard, you know, it was hard. Like I couldn't even look at my chief wrong and he was ready to write me up. So, you know, but I stuck in there. I did what I had to do. I wasn't going to let none of that get in my way. And here I am today, 100% disabled veteran. So there you go.
You got them, didn't you?
Exactly.
Hey.
Did your part, exactly.
Yeah.
Rosalina?
Vanessa, Laura is on now.
Okay. Hi, Laura. So
She's muted.
Okay. Can we talk to Rosalina? Do you have a story to tell?
There we go.
Hi, Laura.
Hi there, and I apologize. I had all my hours messed up. Daylight savings time. I am so sorry.
Yeah, we go. I have a cat that doesn't understand the daylight savings time, so I'm still up early in the morning.
I have a body that doesn't understand the daylight savings time.
There we go. It's like, what is there? No, I'm still hungry. So let's talk to tell me, let's get you caught up. What were some of the challenges you faced in your field, Laura? And tell me what your specialty was while you were in the military.
I was the latter part of my career, I was an anti-terrorism force protection specialist. I specialized in designing and developing installation security plans and VIP security plans. I wrote the Virginia National Guard security force protection plan and the force protection for the governor of Virginia. When I was on active duty, like anything else, I had a myriad of responsibilities. I taught ROTC at Florida State, and you know, when I went in 1976, I went in under a direct commissioning program for the Women's Army Corps. And we went off to officers candidate school, and it was 11.5 weeks long. And if you passed, you kept your bar. If you didn't, you were sent home. Thanks for being here, but you never existed, kind of thing. You know, the biggest challenge for me, aside from dislocating my knee in the confidence course, was in the OCS program. Somehow I got pregnant through immaculate conception, according to them. So I was 25, so it wasn't like I was right off the street somewhere. I'd been around a little bit, and I went, prior to that, I was a private security investigator before I went in the service. And then I got assigned, after graduation, I got assigned to the military police branch. And back then in 77, we didn't have many female officers because they weren't producing them out of ROTC, and the academy was not open to them yet. It opened up the fall of 77. So I was one of the last WAC officers, you know, commissioned. And I was the first female officer in my MP battalion. So it was, back then, it was a little bit of a challenge just to be accepted as an officer, regardless of my gender, and that I would do everything that was expected of me. And for the most part, my commander was exceptional. My very first company commander, he was extremely exceptional. He was a great leader, a wonderful mentor. And I didn't have many female senior officers to look up to. There were a few in the WAC command that, like, there was Colonel Wright, who was a wonderful woman. She was an AG officer. And there was another one who became an MP. She actually retired as a brigadier general eventually. Her name was Evelyn Foote, but she commanded a female basic training unit on the other side of the post from the MPs. So the only female that came on board with any real clout was Mary Elizabeth Clark when she took over Fort McClellan, Alabama, as the commander after the retiring of the WAC colors in the branch. So it was enjoyable. My biggest challenges came in the National Guard, in the Georgia National Guard. They did not know what to do with me because they'd never had a female MP officer. And they called me a race op. Do you know what a race op is?
I'm sorry, nope.
A regular Army son of a bitch.
Oh,
Is what they called me.
well, there you go. We
So,
asked.
you know, because I expected things like, hey, you salute an officer when they come in, you know, by you.
Right.
But the Georgia Guard was very much a good old boy program back then. And I didn't get command like I should have until they put me in the detachment as a commander, so that they were real proud to say I was the first female company commander in the Georgia Guard. And because they didn't think that any guy would get off a tractor in the middle of Georgia and work for a female company commander. I mean, you got to think, this is 40 years ago, and a lot has changed.
A lot of change. Yes,
yep,
it has.
A lot has changed. So those just, I guess, and then the sexual harassment, the things like sweetheart and darling, and trying to convince these guys, you know, I'm not your darling and I'm not your sweetheart. And the more you get to know me, you'll find out exactly why I'm not your sweetheart and your darling. And but I can honestly say that as I moved through the Guard, my reputation, for the better or worse, preceded me. And I started gaining the respect that was due me just by the fact I did my job. And that was it, you know. So it was, the National Guard was very challenging. Virginia was an exception. Virginia was a phenomenal state to be involved with in the Guard. They let me do what I needed to do in physical security and crime prevention, and getting involved in the 9/11 efforts and being the officer in charge of emergency operations during hurricanes. So they did not see a gender in Virginia. They were very, very professional people there.
Excellent.
Awesome. Vanessa, could you go to number 5 so
Okay.
we can
Move on. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the time. Yeah. So I'm gonna hand this question off to Rosalinda. What do you think is the number one thing that military could do to do a better job when it comes to women in the military?
Say that again, please.
What do you think is the number one thing that the military can do better when it comes to women in the military?
You know, since I've been in, I've been very impressed with many changes the Navy has done along. And I know coming in, you know, my time in the military was from 1995 to 2005, both active duty, a little over 7 years, and the rest of my time was reserves, active reserves. And so, you know, anything from when I joined, we were just now getting allowed to be on boats, you know, with men and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, and I know that when I was to pick orders, because I was top of my class, a lot of guys would say, "Oh, you just you're a woman, that's why you didn't get a boat." I'm like, no, they didn't have any female boats for me to get on. And you know, they were still transitioning, making it, you know, both male and female. So from that to pregnancy, I remember a lot of my shipmates who were pregnant, they had such a hard time. Fellow shipmates would, you know, "Oh, she's pregnant, you know, she still needs to do her job. She just got pregnant on purpose." And it was just a lot of things like that. But now, from what I'm hearing, the Navy's allowing for females to have their first year with their baby shore duty, and you're not going to get, you know, go to Iraq after 2 months. That's one reason why I left the Navy. I was pregnant. I was in the reserves. My unit was deploying to Iraq. My husband at the time was still active duty on a submarine, and they weren't able to work with us. So it was going to be 2 months with my newborn and going to Iraq, or, you know, I had to, you know, end my career. So I chose to end my career at the time to be there for my daughter.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
You know,
Do you have like? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Yes, ma'am. No. You know, I think for me, in my experience, you know, especially being in very male dominating duty stations, the first one was pilots. We trained pilots. So most were men on that base. And then my second in Puerto Rico, I was stationed with the security department. And you know, it was astonishing. After I left the Navy, I went into higher education. I went to my first duty station, and I went to use the ladies' room. And what I noticed in the bathroom was, if you're being sexually harassed or been raped or assaulted, please call this number. And here it was, over 20 years later on that base, it was still a big issue.
Right.
And
changed.
I think that's one issue that needs to be addressed, both for women and men, because men have been sexually assaulted as well. But you know, nowadays, you know, now what, we are 2021, and we're still having some major issues with military sexual trauma and etc. You know, but just to see that in the bathroom, and half of the numbers, I'm sorry, I don't think I mentioned that, half of the numbers were gone. They pulled it, you know. So I think that would be one thing that still needs improvement.
Dee, I'd like for you to answer that question too. What do you think is the one thing the military could do better when it comes to women in the military?
I know that the military has done a lot, changed so much since I got out, and now you have, they're making adjustments for transgenders and same-sex marriages and all these things. And whether you agree with it or not, that's not the issue I'm discussing tonight. It's just that the military has become more liberal in dealing with people. I think that big issue is the one that Rosalinda brought up. We definitely, and of course, we're currently still fighting for legislation to help those women who have been sexually assaulted, or even those that will be, to give them an avenue. That's the one thing DOD has not done. That is to give an independent reporting system for women and men who have been sexually assaulted. They're still going through their chain of command, and that really hurts the situation, and many times are not reported because of that. So that is a biggie. Everything else the military is working on changing, but that part still needs a lot of work.
Jennifer, you said you got out in 2018. Do you know anything that would be number one thing the military can do better for women veterans? I mean, women
Yeah,
in the military?
listen, at the risk of belaboring this, right? So some of my fellow panelists have talked about military sexual trauma and sexual harassment. I appreciate the strides that the military services are making in providing specific care for victims of those crimes. What I would like to put on the table is I'd submit that the military needs to address the pervasive culture that allows that to happen. And so taking care of military members after they are hurt is one thing. There needs to be a level of accountability for offenders, and it takes time to change that culture. But I believe that's the way we really get after that problem. I'll get off that soapbox. I'll say this. We know statistically that women veterans face specific challenges as they transition. I think the military services could do better in the space of preparing women veterans for transition back to their civilian lives. And so I know some work is being done in that space. There's right now there's it's not mandatory, so women can attend an optional TAP program that's specific to women, and I appreciate that. But I think the challenge with that is I didn't understand the services that I needed as a woman veteran until I was until I was much removed from separating. I thought I was leaving the service like everyone else. I didn't know the specific challenges that would come my way. And I think I would have been better served, and other women that I talked to would be best served if we could have those conversations about the challenges that are coming for women as they transition before they leave military service.
I agree with you on that. There's so many things, because we have all this experience and then we take it to the civilian world and they don't know what to do with us. But if you had a male counterpart that had all that same experience, they're heading into, directors' jobs, leadership jobs, and we're just kind of like, okay, we're
just bossy, and we're just out here being bossy.
Or we're bossy. We're the B word, it's just everything. So, and then it's just the challenges of making sure that you have adequate daycare, because in the military, daycare was, if not free, it was very inexpensive. So when you get out to the civilian world, you're finding out that they're so expensive to get your kids somewhere that you feel is safe, unlike if you were in the military. So yeah, I agree with everybody on those. Those are The transition period, there is another one that is out there. They're wanting to do it online. I don't know if that one's taken effect, but it's still volunteer. And I think for women veterans who've already out and we know what the transition period's like, we really should be trying to push the women who are coming out to do these programs and utilize them and make sure the DoD utilizes them to support women veterans coming out. Because men are they're coming out and they are not having those problems with transitioning. My next question is, were there any women in the military in uniform that were role models or mentors to you? And if so, how did they help you develop as a person? And I'd like to start with that with Jackie.
Well, that's a good question. It wasn't too many women as AZs when I was there. And like someone else had said earlier that, you know, they had to look up to the men. I think it was Jen that said that. And we only had men to mentor us and stuff like that. And that's what I had. I only had men to mentor me.
So then can I ask you this question? Did you find yourself being in the role of a mentor to other women that were coming into the field?
I didn't feel that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I didn't feel that at all. It was kind of like a cutthroat rate, especially when you're trying to advance or make yourself known or something like that. And then when I had that position of an officer and a chief as an E5, I think it kind of put a target on my back as a female because no men got offered that position. So I really didn't have nobody to talk to. You know, I mean, I felt as though I was always on my own, trying to make it through in this man's world in the military. But I always showed respect. I never, you know, I wasn't voiceful. When I needed to be, I would, but not in a disrespectful way or, you know, to give them a reason not to want to do anything for me or give me what I deserve. It was just it was just very challenging back then.
Did you feel like you were put in this position just because either, I mean, I'm sure you felt you qualified for it, but did you feel like you qualified for it? Or did you feel like I was just put in this position because they wanted to test me or they thought it would break me? Or, I mean, how did you take on that position?
They actually, my boss came to me and asked me if I could do those jobs because I was already in the admin department, but we didn't have a chief in that billet. And so they asked me if I would take it over. And then there was no officer in the billet for the training department. So I had to take that on as well. I just took it on because I thought I could do it. I knew I could do it, you know, and it wasn't a thought in my head, oh, maybe I'll get advanced to this, or it wasn't even that. It was just the fact that we were lacking in those departments and people needed me to fulfill that job so that they could continue to go to school and continue to have their evaluations done and get done. My commander, he had to have somebody there to write the reports for him and type them up for him. And so I just thought it was a need and I just stepped into the role.
Okay. And the reason why I asked those questions because you did say that you felt like you were a target. And so I just wanted to, you know, make sure.
After I took the job.
Okay.
After I took the job. Yeah. After I took the job, I felt as though, especially some of the guys were looking at me some kind of way. You know what I'm saying? Like, who are you to be telling me I need to go to school to do this? That kind of thing.
Miss Dixon, how about you? Were there any women in uniform that was a role model or a mentor to you?
And the journey continues.
Yes.
While I was in the field of journalism and public affairs, I can't truly say there are many women role models. That there was not many women that looked like me, but it was good. It was very good and rewarding. I was drafted into the Army Recruiting Command, and I was put into the Orlando Recruiting Company, and I was the only woman actually that was in that recruiting company. So, of course, you go through, okay, she's a woman, is she gonna out recruit everybody? And the truth of the matter is, she did. And so, after that, I went into, stayed within the recruiting command, but went in as a guidance counselor. And that's where I saw the female or the women role models coming in as commanders within the recruiting command, or station commanders or colonels or whatever. And I can honestly say they were very supportive, very good mentors. I'll never will forget the one that she was like I think she was some type of commander, a company commander, I believe. No, a company sergeant major. And boy, when she walked in that office, it was like, walls, stay back, she's here. And so it was very positive. Those who were officers, they were like, Sergeant Dixon, we got your back. And I can remember when I was getting, I think I was about 18 years into the military, and I was thinking about, okay, it's time to get out. I was just recruited. And, sometimes you go to a job and you go there because you're going to get paid, it's time to leave, right? So I was kind of getting away from the passion of it all. Anyway, I had this woman, a female colonel. She was the company commander. And she was like, Sergeant Dixon, please don't retire. Please don't retire, right? So we go and we get closer to that 20-year mark. She said, now, if you could stay one more year, if you could stay 2 more years. And I said, no, I'm out. And then I found out I was on the E8 list. I was like, I did it wrong, but that's okay. It was cool. They because it's always in good timing, always in God's timing. But right. I can say for the women that I encountered in leadership roles, they definitely was good mentors and coverage. And I, in turn, helped those that came in behind me.
There we go. So and it's very obvious that all of us had very little women in uniform as role models. But is there anyone out on the panel that does have a story of a woman that was a role model for you?
Hi, it's Rosalinda. I had a great role model. It was my second duty station in Puerto Rico. It was a chief, and she was from the islands, and she really helped me through my military career, and tried to guide me and push me to finish my college degree. She was phenomenal. The Navy, as some of my shipmates know, has a lot of uniforms. Yeah. And they went through this
yes.
From the female uniform to all of us having the same uniform. But if you were curvy, they didn't go so well for you. And I didn't look as great in my uniform after that. So, and she was phenomenal. Her uniform was just, she was just 100% looking good all the time. So I always say, Chief, what do you do? Because it's not looking, she helped me look good. Because to me, looking good in my uniform, it made me more confident. Right. And especially in the male-dominating duty station, security, because all the guys look good. I mean, a lot of the guys that attended or that were stationed with me were actually SEALs that were treated, right, in medical or whatever have you. So, you know, it was, so you can imagine how that would.
Yeah.
So, but she really did help me. It was sad when she left. I cried because you know, she understood me. She knew I cried when I was upset, so I could cry in front of her. You know, if there was a male, you know, supervisor or something, I would be reluctant to show my emotions. But with her, I could be who I was, and she listened and she just guided me. So I wish I could see her again. McAllister, Chief McAllister, and I loved her accent. She was just an amazing woman. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure she made Master Chief, but just a bright woman, and I wouldn't have made it without her. She was just phenomenal. That was the first female that I had in a leadership role over me to mentor me. After that, I did experience two more, not such a positive experience. And, you know, it was really hard for me to develop, you know, because I didn't really have anywhere to go or anyone to talk to. And just like, I forgot your name, ma'am, but I too was an E5 in a leadership role. I ran the administrative department, and I did the job. I didn't get the title or any of that, but you know, the admin was my job, and I had to do whatever the OIC needed. And it was funny because when they did get a chief to come in, you know, I let them pursue their career. And it was funny because all I would say is, well, I don't know. I didn't do it. It's chief, you know, it was her decision. And my OSC was like, Archuleta, just tell me what's going on. You know, you're the one doing the job. And so, but he did say, you know, I hope you pursue your officer career. And I mean, he was great, but I tell you, Chief McAllister, I would have made security. It was really hard transition. I wasn't used to working with a lot of enlisted. My first duty station was all officers. I was the junior person in that command. So it was really different experience, and I wouldn't have made it because I was we have to do this by the book, you know, and I was a little high strung, and some of the guys did not like that. And so, you know, I was called those names that sometimes they get called. But yes, it was a great experience. And as a matter of fact, she led me to help mentor other sailors, female sailors. And
that's awesome.
So yes, it was a great experience. I appreciate
it sounds like she raised you up and kept you up there and lifted you and made sure that, you know, your confidence were built. Sounds very an awesome woman. So let's get into the retrospect and the outlook, because we have like 20 minutes left. And I'd like for everybody to talk about this. Dee, do you want me to continue, or would you like this?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing about that. It's this question is more about when you look at your military experience and you look at your transition into civilian life. Do you think you have an advantage because of the experiences that you had in the military? When I say advantage, whether it's in the workforce or just dealing with life because of the experiences you had in military. And I really, when Jackie was talking, I was thinking about what she was dealing with, and do that make you a better person at dealing with challenges, you know, and just being able to maneuver life because of those things that you went through in the military?
Absolutely. Like I said, I never let that deter me from doing my job or being who I feel as though I truly am as a woman in the military. When I transitioned out, every job I took, they kept saying, well, you deserve more money, but we can't afford to pay you. You do the job better than the person that has the job here. And that's when I was in Pensacola when I retired. So it was hard to find a job there when I got out of the military. And I just knew I had to go to a city, and that's what brought me to Jacksonville. And when I came here, I got a job working for Ernst & Young, doing the Y2K for CSX. And my military training and the way that they did things when people checked into the command, I took that to that job. And I implemented that same thing with Ernst & Young at CSX. And I went out on my own and got corporate apartments for all the consultants that came to Jacksonville to work on that project. And they had nominated me for an award with the regular consultants, even though I was temping. I was a temp when I did that job. And that was the first job I got when I got to Jacksonville with the temp agency. And yes, I'm gonna say yes, that my military training and everything that I experienced, I take that with me to this day. And I help out a lot of females right now because I never had that opportunity in the military. And I always want to uplift our women to be able to do what they can for themselves without having to count on a man to do that for you. I'm not saying don't count on them, but you got to have a backup plan. And to this day, as a notary, I've helped a bunch of my female friends get their notary license, and then I train them, and then I send them on their way, and I get them hooked up with the companies that I work with. So what I'm doing now is what I wished I could have done in the military, but I didn't have that opportunity then, but I do now.
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Thank you very much, Jackie. That, let me just tell you my story when I got out. So when I first got out, I took a job with Walmart as a hardware clerk. I was in weapons, so I guess they thought I'd be good in the hardware department. So, but the thing that really got to me was like, I would come to work. So they gave us a smock. I would come to work with my smock starched, creased, lines going down the middle. My name tag on properly, squared away. 2 weeks after that, they made me a department manager. A week after that, they made me assistant manager. And it was just that attitude that I brought to the work. It didn't matter what I was doing. It was that I was giving my best. And I think that's what I learned really about the military, was that you give your best and someone's going to see you down the road and is going to reward you. Because my district manager, when he came and he says, I'm going to give you this job, and the reason why I'm giving it is because you paid attention to detail. Even from the time that you put your uniform, your smock on, and taking care of our customers, you're giving it your all. And I'm just thinking, well, shouldn't everybody be doing that? But, you find out that no, they're not doing all of that. So that's just my story. And the more I think about it, it's just like, it sounds funny because it was just a Walmart job and I was making probably $8 an hour at the time. But it was a job that I felt like I should do my best no matter what it was. So yeah, I understand that. And Amy, how about you when you got out? Because it seems like you really fought to stay in more so than to get out.
Well, I transitioned hard. I did not transition well. I think post-pregnancy hormones played into that too. And I really wish that there were more communities like what we're building here in Northeast Florida for me to plug into and find the support and encouragement that I needed at that time. But because of my time in the service and that there were many challenges, it better equipped me for the challenges of motherhood and marriage and life in general. Things that would typically throw marriages and couples for a loop. My husband and I were just like, okay, we'll figure out a way. Yeah, we're gonna find a way to make it work.
Okay.
you know, everything, same thing for parenting and marriage. I think it made us, I think it makes us as women more equipped to handle life and mothering and that no matter what the challenge is, we know that there is a way to get through it. And if you keep coming up to those roadblocks, you just keep looking for another way to get there.
Okay.
It's phenomenal the amount of redirections my life has taken in what most people would consider a short period of time. But I think I lived more in my lifetime than I've seen people twice my age. Um, and I think that there is an advantage that we have over other people, and the difficulties that we see around us in our country and all of that. As veterans, as female veterans, we are better equipped at being a voice to unify people, to come together and persevere the hardships that we're experiencing, and that no matter what happens with the stock market, the housing market, inflation, cost of food, cost of housing, that we will together
Figure it out.
find a way to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. So that's what I think is the biggest takeaway about what we've learned as females in the military, and a lot of us being pioneers and setting a path for those behind us, is that it may not be easy. It may not look pretty while we're going through it, but at the end of the day, it does get done. So
Yeah, there we
that's
go.
my big
We
thing.
sure do. What about you, Laura?
Listening to these wonderful ladies, boy, y'all make me feel old. I had been on my own since I was 17. And so I went into the service very, very independent. And I guess the biggest thing I had to learn right away was that the Army way is not always the correct way. And I just had to bite my tongue, and it wasn't anything directed at me. Like I said, being told I was pregnant, and I said, excuse me, immaculate conception here. And when I got out, when I retired, I went into teaching, and I found that I have a very keen way of looking at young female students, especially those that are interested in going into the criminal justice field. And my daughter also, she may not like this, but she is an extremely independent, self-assertive female. And I hope she's that way because of me. She may not like it, but, and I try to impress upon these young women that are interested in the criminal justice field and in the military that they have to be their own person. They cannot be anybody else but themselves. And they have to recognize their limitations, but also step up to the plate and give it that 110%, like the young lady was saying, and like you were saying about Walmart. I can always tell when I meet somebody who is a veteran, because there is that attention to detail, there's that stick-to-itiveness, and there is that, there's a degree of a backbone that most civilian women don't have. It's like, okay, fine, I'll just give up and do whatever. And military women, regardless of what their experiences may have been, even competing in the male environment and dealing with the sexual harassment and the innuendos and the name calling and everything, it just made us a lot stronger to deal with the realities of life. Yeah. And it's just, and that's what I try to teach well, I did try to teach my students, my females especially, and the males. I mean, my son is in the service and he's there because of me. I didn't push him into it, but he's very structured. He likes discipline. He likes things in an orderly way. He pays attention to detail, and he's an E6 after 10 years. So I'm very proud of him. And so is his dad.
Yeah.
So I do have a little bit of humor here. I want those of you that have children, and my husband is a minister. So in our house, we had a rule that he was grace and I was law.
Hmm.
And that's how we raised our children.
Wow.
That is good. Good. That is so good.
Is he military? Is he a veteran as well?
No, no,
Oh,
he was not eligible when he went to the recruiting station for Vietnam. But I tell him he served right along with me for 28 years and
That's right.
took care of children when I was deployed, and I couldn't have asked for a better man. He was an awesome partner.
wow.
Awesome.
And we've been married
Awesome.
44 years. So
Congratulations. Wow.
thank you. Yeah, I've been blessed.
Due to time constraints, I'm going to go to the last question. Because I would like everybody to answer this. So I'm just going to go down the list. What would you say to young ladies wanting to join the military today? So,
And make that answer short, please.
yeah, make it short because we have like 9 minutes. So, Rosalinda, what would you say?
Yes, one thing I would say, because I'm doing this with my own daughter, is to make sure you do your research for all branches. All branches are great. It's all about what you want to do in the military. So it's about the right job, the right fit. Don't choose a branch because someone tells you look good in white. You know, that's what I would say.
Amy, how about you?
I give similar advice to women and young men that are looking to go into the military. Look at all the branches, research what you want to do outside of the military, and choose the branch of service that will give you the schooling and the experience you need to get there. And just go for it. Don't be afraid.
Jackie?
I kind of piggyback off of Rosalinda. The same thing is, do your homework, research every branch, see what jobs are available in every branch that you might be interested in doing, and then go that route.
Miss Dixon?
I would tell her to first seize the moment. Secondly, make the best of every opportunity that comes your way. And third, prepare for your transition.
Oh, very good. Very good. Jennifer?
Absolutely go. So I have a 20-year-old son who is a loadmaster on a C-130, and I'm sitting here to tell you all he is living his best life. I have a 14-year-old daughter who is absolutely certain she is going to be a United States Marine, and I'm behind her all the way. Military service was not an easy path, and we had challenges. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I stood with parents whose children didn't come home. I'm a better woman and a better human and a better servant in my community because I served this country. If tomorrow's my last day on this earth, I don't have any question in my mind about whether or not I have fulfilled my purpose here. I just think it's a good option for young people who are looking for their way in the world. Whether they do 4 years or 30, exactly. It's a great place to start.
Ms. T, I'm going to let you make the last word.
Well, I would say all of those things, but because there's so many stereotypes when you start talking about going in the military. So, I have nieces who are in the military, and before they went in, I always told them, if you have a problem, if you don't ever be afraid to speak up and speak out when you know you're right, and call me if anything happens. Just call me, because there are so many things that go on in the military, good and bad. But we want to always let them know that they do have a voice. Even in uniform, they do have a voice. And I refer to, some of the challenges that women veterans have, as we've spoken about those invisible wounds. Never be afraid to speak up, because so many have not, and they have had to suffer the consequences for it. So with that said, I want to thank Charlene for pulling this together tonight. We will be back on Monday night, the don't want to scroll, the 15th, and it's talking about the evolution and future of military women. I ask that you please get someone to join you next Monday. Come back with a friend to listen in to this great lineup of panelists, just like we had tonight. Thank you, panelists. Those that came back from last year, Ms. Loris, nice to meet you. Ladies, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Your story is important,